My boss sold my code to Google for $50 million. He didn't know I had the kill switch. The champagne corks were popping in the glass-walled conference room. Gavin, my CEO, was standing on the table spraying expensive Dom Perignon over the entire engineering team. He was screaming that we had just made history. "We did it, boys!" he shouted. "We just closed the deal. Nexus Corp has been acquired for $50 million. Everyone cheered, except me. I stood in the corner, clutching my termination letter. 5 minutes before the celebration, Gavin had called me into his office. He told me that my services were no longer required. He told me that since I was a junior developer on paper, I wasn't entitled to any equity or stock options from the sale. He handed me a check for 2 weeks severance and told me to get out before the investors arrived. He was selling my code, the algorithm that I built in my basement over the last 2 years, the algorithm that he claimed he invented. He thought he was a genius. He thought he could fire the architect after the house was built and keep all the money. But Gavin made a fatal calculation error. He didn't check the source code. He didn't know that deep inside the neural network layers, hidden under millions of lines of Python script, was a digital heartbeat, a kill switch that required a cryptographic key to keep running, and that key refreshed every 24 hours. Without me, that $50 million software is just a useless brick. I watched him celebrate. I put the termination letter in my pocket, and I whispered, "Enjoy the champagne, Gavin. Tomorrow, the hangover begins." Here is the story of how I held a $50 million deal hostage with a single line of code. To understand the theft, you have to understand the environment. I worked for a startup in San Francisco called Nexus. Our office looked like a playground for adult children. We had beanbag chairs, a microbrewery tap in the kitchen, and a slide instead of stairs. The CEO was Gavin. Gavin was what we call a bro-grammer. He wore Patagonia vests, drank Soylent, and talked constantly about disrupting the industry. But here is the secret. Gavin couldn't code to save his life. He was a salesman who knew enough buzzwords to trick venture capitalists into giving him money. I was the opposite. My name is Ethan. I don't have a Stanford degree. I'm self-taught. I spent my teenage years hacking open-source projects on GitHub. Gavin hired me as a junior debugger because I was cheap labor. Our main product was supposed to be a revolutionary AI that could predict stock market trends with 99% accuracy. We called it Project Oracle. For 2 years, the project was a failure. The senior engineers, guys from Google and Meta who were paid $300,000 a year, couldn't get it to work. They spent their days playing ping pong and arguing about which mechanical keyboard switch was louder. I worked the night shift. While they were sleeping, I was rebuilding the engine from scratch. I realized their approach was wrong. They were trying to brute force the data. I wrote a new algorithm based on recursive neural networks. It took me 6 months of sleepless nights. I lived on Red Bull and instant ramen. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted to surprise the team. One Tuesday morning at 3 a.m., it finally worked. The code compiled without errors. I ran a simulation on historical stock data from 2008. Project Oracle predicted the crash perfectly, 3 days before it happened. I had just invented a money printing machine. I was naive. I was excited. I packaged the code and sent an email directly to Gavin titled, "I fixed it. Oracle is alive." Gavin called me into his office at 7 a.m. He wasn't angry that I went over the senior engineers' heads. He was ecstatic. "Ethan, my boy," he said, closing the blinds. This is incredible. Walk me through it. How does it work?" I spent 3 hours explaining the architecture. He took notes. He asked detailed questions about the libraries I used. He asked where the files were hosted. "This is top secret, Ethan," he said, looking me in the eyes.
You cannot tell the senior engineers. They might sabotage it. Let's keep this between us until the big reveal. I'm going to promote you, Ethan. CTO, Chief Technology Officer. That's your future." I believed him. I transferred the repository to his private server. I gave him the admin keys. I thought I had found a mentor. In reality, I had just handed a loaded gun to a man who was about to shoot me.
The next morning, I woke up at 10 a.m. I didn't check my email. I made coffee, sat on my balcony, and watched the city. Meanwhile, across town at the Nexus headquarters, hell was breaking loose. It was 10:05 a.m. The executives from Omnicorp, the buyers paying $50 million, were sitting in the boardroom. They were there to witness the final due diligence demo. Before they wired the funds, they wanted to see Project Oracle predict the opening trends of the Tokyo Stock Exchange in real time. Gavin was sweating. He stood at the podium, smiling nervously. "Gentlemen," he said, "prepare to see the future." He signaled his new lead engineer, a guy named Kyle, whom he had hired yesterday to replace me. Kyle typed the command to launch the AI. The screen flickered. A loading bar appeared. "Initializing Oracle Core. Connecting to server." Then the screen turned bright red. "Error. Authorization key missing. System lockdown initiated. Data encryption 10%, 20%. "What is happening?" the Omnicorp VP asked, frowning. "Just a minor glitch," Gavin stammered. "Kyle, fix it." Kyle was typing furiously. "I can't, sir. The kernel is rejecting my admin access. It's asking for a daily cryptographic signature. It says, 'Dead man's hand activated.' Data encryption 100%. System halted." The screen went black. The code didn't just stop, it scrambled itself. The $50 million AI had just turned into a meaningless soup of random numbers. The Omnicorp executives stood up. They didn't look happy. "Gavin," the VP said coldly, "we are buying a proprietary algorithm. It appears you don't have one. Call us when you have a product that works. Until then, the deal is off." They walked out. The $50 million walked out with them. At 10:30 a.m., my phone started ringing. It was Gavin. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again, 17 times in 10 minutes. Finally, I picked up. "Ethan!" Gavin screamed. He sounded like he was crying. "What did you do? The system is dead. It deleted everything." "I didn't do anything, Gavin," I said calmly, sipping my coffee. "That's the problem. The system requires daily maintenance from its architect. But since you fired the architect, nobody was there to feed the beast." "Fix it!" he yelled. "Come back here and fix it right now." "I can't," I said. "I'm not an employee. I signed a release form, remember? I have no legal right to touch your code. Good luck with the hangvower." I hung up. 2 hours later, a black town car pulled up in front of my apartment building. Gavin got out. He didn't have security this time. He looked disheveled. His tie was undone. He buzzed my intercom. "Ethan, please. Omnicorp gave us 24 hours. If the system isn't running by tomorrow morning, the deal is dead forever. The investors will sue me for fraud. I'll go to jail." I buzzed him in. He sat on my cheap IKEA sofa, looking out of place. "What do you want?" Gavin asked, defeated. "You want your job back? I'll make you CTO. I'll double your salary." "I don't want a job, Gavin," I said. "I want ownership." "I can't give you ownership," he pleaded. "The cap table is full. The investors won't allow it." "Then you don't get the code," I shrugged. "Look, Gavin, you built a company on a lie. You told everyone you had a product, but all you had was me, and you treated me like a disposable battery. Now the battery is gone, and your toy doesn't work." Gavin put his head in his hands. He knew I held all the cards. "Okay," he whispered. "What is your price?" I pulled out a contract I had printed an hour ago. "I want to be hired back as an external consultant," I said. "My fee for restoring the system is $5 million, paid up front. Plus, I want 10% of the acquisition price from Omnicorp acknowledged in writing as a founder's fee. That's another $5 million. $10 million? Gavin's eyes almost popped out. "That's 20% of the whole deal. That's more than I'm making."
Yes, but if you don't agree, you make 0 and you go to prison for defrauding investors. So, is it 10 million for me or 0 for you? Gavin looked at the contract. He looked at me. He realized the quiet kid in the hoodie was a better businessman than he ever was. He signed. He wired the first 5 million from the company's remaining operational funds immediately. I watched the money hit my account. I opened my laptop. I logged into the remote server. I typed, "Enable key generation." It's done. The system will reboot in 10 minutes.
The acquisition went through the next day. Omnicorp got their AI, the investors got their payout, and Gavin got to keep his reputation. Barely. But word travels fast in Silicon Valley. The engineers at Omnicorp eventually analyzed the source code. They found my dead man's hand signature. They realized that Gavin didn't build it. I did. 6 months later, Gavin was quietly fired by the Omnicorp board for misrepresentation of technical assets. He is currently trying to launch a crypto startup in Miami. I hear it's not going well. As for me, I took my $10 million and started my own incubator, but I run it differently. In my company, every engineer gets equity. Every creator owns what they build, and nobody, absolutely nobody, is allowed to wear a Patagonia vest. I learned that in the tech world, code is power, but leverage is knowing when to press delete. If you are a creator, an artist, or a developer, protect your work. Always leave a watermark, because the only person who will look out for you is you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of Silicon Valley revenge, smash that like button and subscribe. And remember, always read your employment contract.